Progress.
What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing out there? This EB Crypto, Eric Brent, coming to you guys with another video. I found another video here on TikTok, on the wonderful world of TikTok. And yesterday I was talking about Donald Trump and him being the art of the deal and how, everybody in America right now is just praising him for doing such a great job with China. And he's really bragging about, he's blessed by God to do what he's doing. And it's just not that cut and dry. I'm sorry. When you're dealing with tariffs, when you're dealing with global economics, it's just not that easy. There's a lot of dynamics and a lot of different intricate details when it comes to that. So this is not going to be an easy ride. This is not going to be a win for win, win-win situation. This is going to be a very interesting situation. But without any further ado, I'm going to let this gentleman talk because I'm going to show a different perspective than I did yesterday. Yesterday, I talked about how everyone is really seeing how Trump got China by the you know what, and everybody is really promoting this, and I'm seeing on the news coverage is basically showing how China is going to lose. But I want to show you what some of the Chinese are thinking.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before. But now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world. China is fully
Oh,
prepared
that was
to
a
fight to
mouthful
the
right
very
there.
end.
That was a mouthful. Now I want to elaborate on it a little bit. I know he said a whole lot in a little short time, but his overall mindset is, well, China don't need America. We're gonna do this, and we can go without America. We can, um, continue. We've been doing this for 5,000 years. Well, 5,000 years ago, China was in peasant conditions. Exactly 60 years ago or so, they were still pushing buggies and riding bicycles. And it's just over the last 60, 70 years, I would say, that the industrialization of China just kind of exploded. And you know what? That sound good, what he's saying. And what Donald Trump is saying sound good, but I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that simple. It's just not that simply cut and dry. First of all, China is saying they don't need America. Okay, when about 60%, no, not that much. I would say probably about 30 to 40% of their income is from America, but it's a little deeper than that. It's a little more uh, profound than that because when you talk about the currencies in the world, the United States has one of the most powerful currencies in the world. So you still need that US dollar. Yes, you can go deal with, Africa. You can go deal with India. You can go deal with Pakistan, Uzbekistan. But these countries are like 60 something to one of the American dollar. So you still want to have that most potent currency, and you don't want to lose that client because, from my understanding of America's population, we make up about 5% of the world's population. Listen to this, pay attention. 5% of the world's population, but we make up over 30% of the consumer power in the world. You don't want to lose that client. And if you do lose that client, it's just not going to be that cut and dry, simple, like you could just get over it, like, you know, you get over a bad dream or something. It just doesn't work that way. It's we're all interdependent on one another. There's not one country on the planet Earth today that is totally independent. Not one. Every country depends on another country for natural resources, for minerals, or something. This is why you have a global economy because everybody depends on someone for something. And from my research and study of history, tariffs have never been a good idea throughout history. Tariffs have always ended in a very disastrous um, ending. It just hasn't been a good ending. And I'm not saying that our administration shouldn't have dealt with it because this has been a looming problem for several years, and China has not been um, a good player in the game. They've had a closed market in China for so many years. In the '80s, when I was taking business classes, Japan and China was closed markets. Basically, they don't prohibit you from doing business there. They don't make it against the law, but they make it virtually impossible for you to be successful in business over there. They basically kind of block you out from being super successful with Asian businesses. Even the American companies that are set up over there, the government has so many regulations. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has so many regulations to where basically the government is kind of running your business, but they block certain businesses from being repurchased by Americans. And we don't do that here. We allow them to buy anything, anywhere they want to buy, purchase anything they want to do, interact with business and cooperate in international business here. And there's no side effects. So this has been going on for so many years. Like I said, it was all good when the companies here in America were sending their manufacturing to China because the manufacturing cost of most businesses is probably the most expensive cost. So for the last 40, 50 years, a lot of CEOs have been, redirecting their manufacturing to China for cheaper labor and a bigger profit. Well, guess what? Now the chickens have come home to roost. Now it's at a time where China was smart. They was like, okay, we're not going to let you engage in business here like that, but we're going to take advantage of your free enterprising in America and the capitalism, and we're going to, you know, uh, stack our money or whatever, or just use this to put more money into our military, more money into our infrastructure. So if you look at China as far as a country, it's beautiful. I mean, it looks like something out of the Wizard of Oz. I mean, how their infrastructure has been so advanced now. It looks like some futuristic city when you look at China. And just if you just look at the train system itself, you look at the New York train system, the Chicago train system, it's so dilapidated. Graffiti all on it. I mean, it's crazy, But if you look at their transportation system, it's so highly advanced. I mean, they got trains that do 300 miles an hour. They got trains that pretty much, I think, like 20 million people ride their train every day, and you don't hear about train accidents. Everything there is so proficient. Everything there is so beautiful, and they've used all of the profits from their trade surplus to enhance their way of life. The middle class there has grown over the last 50 years to a level where they're a superpower. What made America one of the greatest countries in the world is we had the largest middle class in the world. Now that's not the case. Now China's gaining ground on us. Now, at one point, we had the largest military in the world. That's not the case anymore. China's now right there with us, tank for tank, aircraft for aircraft. They're pretty much neck and neck with us on every level and aspect and endeavor of life. And this is not going to be solved with one simple tariff. Now, like I said, I realized that we had to deal with this issue, but at the same time, the way our administration is dealing with the issue, I don't agree with this John Wayne mentality of, hey, high noon. If you don't do this by high noon, then we're gonna go up on your tariffs and it's our way or the highway. And this mindset and mentality is not gonna work with another superpower. You can't approach another superpower in that manner. So this guy is saying, "Oh, we can do without America. We can do a business without America. We don't need America. We're big enough where we don't need America." And this is the mindset that's, is going to reverberate um, a lot of negative backlash. So when you look at again the trade deficits and you look at what has been going on between these two countries, this is not something that can be solved with one or two solutions. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't been dealt with, but if you add a resolution that's not the right resolution, then it's going to create more problems. So again, I'm looking at this thing is not going to be an easy resolution. There's so many different intricate parts of what's going on here. I want to show you guys another side of it. Let me show you one more little video on how this is really going sideways fast. It's going sideways really fast. And I want to share this video with you on what the Chinese are saying about this situation.
I woke up and the sky has collapsed again. On top of everything, now we face a 50% increase in tariffs. I mentioned before that many US orders through communication between buyers and sellers had been adjusted, with both sides compromising to complete the original orders. But today, unexpectedly, the tariffs increased by 50%. Well, those orders are being cancelled. If this trade war continues, half of our domestic textile factories will go out of business. Because of US tariffs, a Chinese businesswoman suffered from chest pain.
After doing business for so many years, today I truly felt chest pain when receiving orders. I don't know if other bosses feel the same way.
She adds that although there aren't many customers placing orders with the US now, many suppliers in Keqiao are facing a lack of business, so they've lowered the prices across markets significantly. In the past, a profit of 1,500 yuan was already not high, and it would often be discounted to around 12 or 1,500 yuan. But today, customers are bargaining so hard that she is starting to question life itself. At this point, it's only about keeping the machines running. Making a profit no longer matters. No one knows when this war will end. On April 9th, US President Trump announced that tariffs on China would rise to 125%. At the same time, he suspended reciprocal tariffs for other countries for 90 days. Trump explained the decision. I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them, if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. On April 9th, Trump posted,
All right, that's enough there. As you guys can see, what that guy was talking about is irrelevant. He's saying, well, with China, we don't need America. We can do this. First of all, America has finance. We have finance that most countries don't have. I'm going to give you an example. Some import and export companies who deal with volume of business, if they don't have the liquid cash at a certain time, they can get a loan for a shipment. That kind of finance doesn't exist in other countries. So let's say China's dealing with Africa, or they're dealing with Dominican, or they're dealing with countries in South America. A lot of these countries don't have access to the financial institutions that we do in America. So again, not only do we make up 30% of the total global consumerism, American companies have access to finance. If they don't just have the American dollar cash on their bank, they actually have access to finance, which makes the American client even more valuable than these other clients. So it's just not that cut and dry. Again, this is not a war of tariffs. This is an economic war, and the casualties of war will be the masses of Chinese people and the people in America. These are the casualties of war. This is not something that would just Donald Trump and Xi. I can't pronounce his name properly. Xi, the leader of China, is going toe-to-toe piss contest. This is going to have a negative reverberating effect on the masses. Give you another example. I find out that Amazon has 50% of their products are coming from China. So if 50% of your products is coming from China, and now China is forced to close down manufacturers, thousands of manufacturing companies are closing. So this is affecting hundreds of thousands of workers in China. Also, now we're talking about Amazon laying off thousands of hundreds of thousands of people who may be deliverer truck drivers, who may be working in the warehouses. This is not a game. This is not a game. This is not going to end well. This is going to have a very negative effect on the economies around the world. So I'm not saying we didn't have to deal with China. I'm not saying that this shouldn't have been a resolution. I'm only saying if it's not handled right, and if you come up with a quick John Wayne type of resolution, it's just going to create a more negative reverberating effect around the world. Because again, no country is independent. Every country now is interdependent on other countries for whether it's minerals, whether it's natural resources, or just services. Most of the American companies right now got call services in Dominican. You guys have called ATM, AT&T. You guys have called some company, and there's someone from India or Pakistan on the phone. Every country now not only depends on other countries for natural resources, but they also depend on other countries for services. So this is not going to end well. I mean, I still go to shop at certain places where there's a lot of Chinese products. Now, most of the products that I engage in are virtual products because I do blockchain and cryptocurrency. But at some point, I got to go purchase something from Amazon. At some point, I might want to go to the swap meet. And all of this is going to be devastated with these tariffs because now we're up to 134%. And it's even been said that we may go up to like 300 or 400%. Basically, we cutting China off from trading with America. And this was Donald Trump's intention from beginning. This is why he paused all the other countries with the exception of China, because he knew coming at China the way he came at China so aggressively and abrasive, they were going to say, nah, you know what? We passed. He already knew they were going to have that kind of reaction because it's just like one bully trying to bully the other bully. It's not going to work. So he knew they were going to have that kind of reaction. They wanted this trade war because they are tired of seeing the Asians at a surplus every year when we're at a deficit every year. See, that's the whole thing right there. It was a lot of jealousy in there. There was a lot of animosity and resentment behind the Asian markets, but you guys did it. You sold out to the Asian markets. You guys are the ones set up factories over there. I think Donald Trump even had a Trump Tower over there. So they all are guilty of taking a quick dollar and not looking at the long run. Now the chickens have come home to roost. Now it's at a point where they got to deal with China or submit to China, and nobody wants to submit. And China doesn't want to submit to you, so it's just bad all around. It's no easy way to say this. This is not going to have a good ending for anybody. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I'll be watching this carefully and seeing more what's developing. I do know that China holds $769 billion in bonds, U.S. bonds, and so I suspect they're going to start dumping those bonds, which is going to create more inflation on the American dollar, which is going to affect the American citizens. So it's just no way around. This is not a fun time. This is not going to have a happy ending. So buckle your seatbelts. Get ready for a rough ride because right now there's a pissing contest between our administration, the Chinese administration, and the casualties of war are the actual citizens of China and America. So with that, I'll close out, you guys. I'll see you on the next video, and we're going to talk more about in detail how this is going to continue to affect us and what you need to be doing and looking out for to make your way and position yourself to possibly benefit from this because there's always a way to make money, whatever's happening in the world. Remember, there's always someone making money at all times, no matter what happens. And you guys need to be one, and I need to be one. So with that, we're gonna close out. See you guys on the next video. Deuces.